Arguably one of the most important enthusiast vehicles to come out for 2023, the Acura Integra is back. And longtime viewers know that as a Honda fanboy, I have a complicated relationship with the state of Honda and Acura as brands today. Can the revived Integra, the enthusiast champ, can it win me over? Can it convince me to upgrade from my 8th gen Civic Si that I love so much because of its screaming K20 engine? Let's go hit the road and find out. Do you hear that? That's the sound of mediocrity. My Civic, when it was stock, was definitely faster than that. I'm sorry. There's no way. Let's start with the basics. Under the hood, the thing you really care about is a 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that produces 200 horsepower and a whopping 192 pound-feet of torque. Now that sounds familiar to you. It absolutely should, because it is identical to what you'd find under the hood of the Civic Si. Acura made no changes to this thing. None. At all. It has the same L15B7 engine designation as the Civic Si. They didn't add any more power at all. And I'm not a guy who's hung up on power figures, but it does just feel a bit odd that the Acura Integra, which is typically kind of the sportier, more potent version of a Honda Civic, doesn't have a single more horsepower, really. It's also worth pointing out that previous Integra models, or I guess to be specific, the RSX, when that left us back in 2006, had 210 horsepower. So I guess that's progress. But Honda and Acura are quick to point out, but this thing has torque finally because it's turbocharged. But does it really? This engine has no balls below 2,500. I mean, nothing is happening because this little engine just can't spool up the turbo. So that 192 pound-feet of torque figure, really you're not going to get any of that until the tax swings over about $3,000. And because the rev limiter is at a mere 6,500 RPM, it's not a ton of power to play with. And I mean, I guess it's fuel efficient. It'll get 36 mpg on the freeway, which is nice. The only real good thing from this powertrain is definitely the shifter on this 6-speed manual. It is really tight and very precise. It's just unfortunate that it's paired to everything else in this powertrain, which is just soft, numb, and dead. After a week behind the wheel, I still cannot come to terms with this clutch pedal, which has zero weight, zero feedback. There's just nothing happening there. And because this engine has no real personality, has a really soft rev limiter, and kind of comes on the power late, it's hard to get into a rhythm with this powertrain. There's no real intuitive feeling from behind the wheel, which is something that Honda and Acura products usually have in spades. Oh, hi there. It's your boy, just checking in. Are you enjoying the video so far? Well, of course you are. That's because this is some grade A primo content we're talking about. So go ahead and show your support by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. It's free and it helps the channel. All right, back to the video. So if the powertrain is so-so, what else does this thing have going for it? Well, it's a Civic Si chassis, again from front to back. Acura didn't even change anything as minute as the sway bars. That means you have McPherson strut up front and a multi-link independent suspension out back, and the handling is actually quite nice, just like the 11th gen Civic Si. The Integra does have one clear advantage over the Civic in the dynamics department, and that is the fact this thing has adaptive dampers. Not only can you adjust the base firmness based on the drive mode you select between comfort, normal, sport, or individual, but the dampers also have some small amount of continuous adjustment based on the imperfections in the road quality. And the ride quality in this car is sublime. I actually quite like the way this car rides in any of the drive modes you do select. To me, it feels softer at all times than the Civic Si. which I think has a nice balance of sort of sport and comfort, but slightly more on the firm side. I think it's quite nice, but if you're looking for a more cushy ride, well, the Integra definitely does that better. While both the Civic Si and the Integra roll on 18-inch wheels with 235 section width rubber, the Si at least has the option for high-performance summer rubber. Whether those tires were high performance is a big question mark, but they are certainly nicer than these ultra-low grip Continental all seasons that come on the Integra, which howl in protest if you look at a corner the wrong way, let alone go through it quickly. Granted, that's an easy problem to fix. Tires are the easiest upgrade on any car. Still, don't expect this thing to be a real handling dynamo out of the box. The reason why I feel underwhelmed by the chassis as well as the powertrain is that actually there's a bit of a secret to those adaptive dampers that I like so much. The previous 10th generation Civic Si that debuted in 2016 actually had adaptive dampers as standard. Honda took those out of the new 11th gen, which is already more expensive than the 10th gen was, to put them back in the Integra, which is more expensive than that. They must have realized, oh wait, this is a cool feature. We should be charging a ton more money for it. And so that's exactly what they've done, which doesn't really feel all that nice inside to know that they just think that they can make a lot more money off their consumers that way rather than giving them good value. But it's an Acura. Acura is entry-level luxury. Maybe the interior experience is nicer than the Civic. And it is. But there's an asterisk, like seemingly everything else attached to this car. The front of this car, the dash, is 100% Honda Civic. They didn't change anything. This is, to be specific, is a Civic Touring dash, which means that unlike the Civic Si, at least this gauge cluster has a very basic coolant temp gauge. The bar is very low. This dash is quite nice in the Honda Civic, and I do really like all the things it has here. This infotainment display is really slick. It has a combination of a touchscreen, physical knobs and buttons. It's very easy to use, and of course it has wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto connectivity, along with wireless phone charging down here. What Acura did change are these seats. Not only do they look quite nice, typical Acura, a lot of flowing lines, and the availability of multiple colors in the interior. In this case, we have black, gray, and red, which I think looks quite nice. These seats are both power and heated, features you cannot get in the Civic Si. Though it's worth noting, like the adaptive dampers, the old Civic Si actually had heated seats as standard, and again, Honda took those out of the new one to put them back in this more expensive Integra just to make more money off you, the consumer. The only clear advantage the Integra has in the interior over a Civic is because this is a fully loaded Integra with the tech package. This has Acura's 16-speaker ELS premium 3D audio, and it is a very, very nice stereo system. Unfortunately, YouTube will demonetize my videos if I play any music, but just trust me, go try it out. It's very, very nice. Unfortunately, we've gotten to the end of the list of things Acura has changed for the better over a comparable Honda Civic, and that's where we need to talk about the price point of this vehicle because, wow, it is very expensive. The Integra has a $31,000 base price, and interestingly, you are stuck with a continuously variable automatic transmission in all Integra models unless you opt for the fully loaded one like this tester, the A-SPEC. This A-SPEC with tech package rings in at $37,000. That's over $8,000 more than a Civic Si. Is that worth it to you based on what you've seen in this review? Well, let's carry on because there are a few more things we need to talk about in this experience. Because this is based on the Civic Si, it does have the same nice low seating position that I quite like as a driver. Of course, power adjustable seat, big range of adjustability here, whether you're really short or really tall. I quite like that. And the back seat is spacious. I fit behind myself in the second row, no problem. Acura also wants to point out that the Integra is a liftback or a hatchback, kind of a nod to previous Integra models in the RSX. And they say how practical that is, and that's true. That trunk has a nice big opening. You can fit big stuff back there. Sorry, I'm gonna nerd out on this. The design is hamstrung a bit by the fact that the bumper arches up really high and sticks out quite far, meaning that anything you put in that big trunk, you have to hike it up and over the bumper to get it in there. But that's not the problem. The problem with the Integra's liftback is the design means that this car has absolutely tiny rear quarter glass. And Acura fits, for some reason, these really big, bulky interior panels back there, meaning your over-the-shoulder blind spots are massive. Fortunately, this car has blind spot monitoring, but you will absolutely need it because you have no idea what's going on back there. I have to mention the exterior styling for just a second because I've noticed some observations. Aesthetics are very subjective. What one person thinks is good, others might think is bad. The front is very clearly inspired by the TLX. Unfortunately, the TLX design only works when you stretch it out wide and long. There's a reason why that car is longer than a BMW 5 Series, despite having less interior volume than a Honda Fit. You might think it's fine, even though I don't. Hey, that's up to you. What I'm concerned about is just the fact that they should have done so much more. I learned to drive stick in my buddy's Acura RSX Type S back when those were new cars. What was that, like 16 years ago? I own an 8th gen Civic Si. I know what this company can do when they put forth a real solid effort. And this doesn't feel like one. Instead, this feels disingenuous. The Acura Integra has always been a fancier Civic that debuted better stuff. More equipment, better features, better suspension geometry, bigger brakes, better engines. The only dynamic advantages this has over a Civic Si are things that Honda took out of the old model to put back in this and charge you more for. That's why it feels disingenuous. This is Honda and Acura looking at their brand loyalists, their deepest fans who've been waiting for the Integra to come back patiently or impatiently and saying, we know you guys are stupid. You will buy anything we make as long as it has an Integra badge. So we're gonna charge you over $8,000 more for this mediocre, middle-of-the-road Civic Si. So don't buy an Acura Integra, please don't. If you want this general experience, just buy the Civic Si. The features you're missing, are they really worth over $8,000? No, of course they're not. If you want a better take on this experience, surprisingly, look at the Volkswagen Jetta GLI. They refreshed that car for 2022. It has a lot more power than this. It has the same chassis goodies, the same suspension setup with independent dampers, big brakes, a limited slip diff, and actually a nicer interior, in my opinion, that has more content. I mean, you get things like ventilated seats in a GLI. Oh, and it's about $5,000 less than this car. I think that's why I feel so offended, because I just drove that and was so surprised by how good it was that when you hop into this and it's $5,000 more money and it feels so decontented by comparison, it just feels uninspired. Or if you want more performance, go buy a Subaru WRX and also save a lot more money. And the sad thing is, this is really the end of the road because Honda and Acura are clearly not putting any development money in their internal combustion engine powered vehicles, so they can focus on trying to at least catch up in the electric vehicle space because they're so far behind there. So there it is, the story of the Acura Integra, going out with a whimper and not with a bang. Very disappointing. All right, guys, I wish I had a better way to end the video, but I really don't. My name is Jake. You've been watching Drive, Brake, Fix, Repeat. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time where hopefully I actually drive a car worth a damn. Thanks. Bye.